Assalamu alaikum. This is our first lecture, and the topic of the lecture is China's geostrategic challenges. I'll make this lecture, and after that, I'll upload it on the YouTube, and then later on, I'll share it in the group, and you people would go through it, and I'll be online and you would be asking me questions. Anyhow, coming to China, so China is, if we compare China's strategic location to USA, so China is surrounded by a lot of challenges, whereas USA is enjoying a very good location covered by large bodies of water, and having friendly country on its north, and the southern country Mexico is quite weak in terms of military. So whereas China is surrounded by almost 17 to 18 neighboring states, and China is having a lot of territorial issues with these neighboring states, and so I would say over here that China is a country both blessed and cursed by geography. It is the civilization that has started from Yellow River, and right now China is having almost 1.4 billion population, and agriculturally the eastern China is entirely based on agriculture, and the irrigation system is quite stretched to almost every single point of eastern China, and this area is one of the critical part of China, because it is considered to be the backbone. This area has actually ensured the food security of its country, and initially it has supported China a lot in emerging as a power. And the distinguished feature of this land is that a farmer can take two crops in a year, like in a way that we take in Pakistan. So, and even if we see or if we shuffle the pages of history, we can see that wherever there is an agriculture rich area, or where there is enough water to water that agriculture area, and there would be large number of people living, like for example this Indus Valley civilization around Indus River, like in Punjab is densely populated. If we compare Punjab with Balochistan, KPK and Sindh. Why? Because Punjab has got enough water, and the land is agriculturally rich. In the same way, even in China, eastern China, it is densely populated. Why? Because the land is agriculturally rich, and there is enough water for it. Other than this agricultural land, in the south, China is sharing its border with Vietnam, Laos and Myanmar, and the borders in between these three countries are settled. Vietnam border with Vietnam was settled after Sino-French War, whereas the other borders were other two countries' border were settled at different events. If we compare the military of these three countries, so combinedly these three countries are having an army of almost 1 million personnel. 1 million means 10 lakh, and Chinese standing army is almost 2 millions, mean 20 lakh. Though if a war starts in between China or these three countries or any of the country, Laos, Vietnam, so uh, China would have an edge of advanced military technology, but on the other hand, these three countries would definitely have an edge on the terrain they are having. The bordering area with China is based on thick forests, rough terrain, hilly or high mountains, and the weather is so harsh. Same as like during the Vietnam War, when the US has landed its troops in Vietnam, it was quite hard for them to fight their enemy, and because it was so difficult to identify the enemy to hit them, because they used to have a cover of or an umbrella of thick forest, huge mountains. So this is why if a war starts in between China and these three countries, so China would have a very challenging situation. This was about the in between these three countries in the south and China. And now if we talk about India, Tibet comes in between China and India, though China even shared direct border with India. So China and India aren't good friends. They have boundary disputes, and they have military conflicts. They have political differences. Their ideologies are different. So that's why it's quite hard for them to get along. And Tibet, historically, Tibet was Tibet was having its own empire, but some 300 years back, it was being conquered by China, and for the last 300 years, it is being ruled by China now. And this Tibet is being ruled by China. If China gives up Tibet, then obviously Tibet is gonna come under the control of India, or under the influence of India. And Tibet, if Tibet would get independent, Tibet won't have enough power to sustain. Why? Because it is landlocked, it is hilly, it is not smooth economically, it doesn't have a strong economy, it doesn't have a good army, socially it's not stable, and who can say that it would be stable politically, because a newly independent country have a lot of issues, and it takes time to evolve the system in any of the newly independent country. And another reason that why Tibet is important to China, because if Tibet comes under the control of India, so India would have an easy access to the most populated area of China, and even to the agriculture rich land, and they would have a very easy way to invade China, even because Tibet is having huge mountains, and these mountains has actually given a natural shield to China in case if India wants to invade China. And moreover, this Tibet is not having transportation mechanism, like they don't have roads, they don't have railway network. So in case if India want to invade in China, India would have a lot of challenges in mobilizing or in taking their troops to the border of China. So, but now China is planning and has already started executing its development plans in Tibet, and beside this development of roads, China has even constructed an airport that is few miles away from the Indian border. All these development in Tibet would strengthen China's hold on Tibet, and one of the most important point that we cannot ignore over here is that the water for the Chinese agriculture land is coming through two different rivers from Tibet. So here we are completed with the first part of China's geostrategic challenges, and the second part of this topic will be covered in the second lecture. So stay blessed and Allah Hafiz.